some units ready just in case this gets into their area. But this Ford here is going 106 miles an hour right now, according to Skyview 5 here southbound 405. LAPD now air unit following this vehicle, trying to get a hold of CHP, see what they'd like to do, but LAPD supervisors have called off the pursuit due to the danger of the speeds, and it's no longer technically in their jurisdiction as it is on the freeway system and not on surface streets. And right now in Sky 5, what I'm going to try to do is tune into the California Highway Patrol and see what their plan is here. In that right-hand emergency lane there, that's a very dangerous place to go, especially high speeds, but at any speed, because there might be broken down vehicles there that you might not be able to stop through. But all the way from that right-hand shoulder into those HOV lane there, this suspect just bouncing back and forth across all lanes of the southbound 405 right now at 80 miles an hour. Southbound 405 going through Sunset now here at 82 miles an hour. This gray vehicle here wanted for DUI as well as reckless driving from the California Highway Patrol and the LAPD. Both have terminated pursuits. The air units are still overhead following from above, attempting to coordinate with ground units to get them back involved, as this driver is driving extremely dangerous here in the Los Angeles area. Cutting out of that carpool lane again, through the number 2 lane, 3 lane, and into sticking to that 3 lane here, southbound 405 at 95 miles an hour again, and into that 4 lane, just trying to cut through traffic at high rates of speed. We saw a CHP unit go by in that slow lane. They were ready, it looks like. Let's see what they do as they get into position. Let's see if that police unit got behind. It doesn't look like it did, so we're just going to stick with the suspect here as they attempt to place units behind this vehicle now. The California Highway Patrol Air Unit, CHP 50, is now over this and taking over for LAPD Air 18. And they are still following the southbound 405, and I'm going to beginning to call this out to the West Valley Department of California Highway Patrol, who are attempting to take over this pursuit. Wow, cutting through those lanes, just threading the needle between those vehicles, through the carpool lane, back into the number 1 lane at 100 miles an hour. 100 miles an hour here on the southbound 405. Traffic is light for this time of the day. That's for sure. We are in that rush hour period, but with the current situation, people staying at home, we are seeing a little bit lighter traffic as we go over under the overpass there of the 10 freeway. Wow, just cutting through all lanes of traffic and back over to that. Whoa! Wow, caught that SUV there, just clipped it in the corner. We'll see if they pull over, but now all the way over into that right shoulder once again on the southbound 405. Now, as we continue here southbound on the 405, if this continues, we have to make a decision of how we want to approach following the pursuit due to the LAX airspace. But so we might have to get a little wider of a shot for a bit, but we're going to follow this as long as we possibly can. And we are hearing that he's coming up on some units right now, so we'll see if they take over the pursuit. Go ahead. Roger that. Stay clean until we go live on TV. Wow, we're running past that CHP unit there. Now CHP is in pursuit of this DUI reckless driver here, right-hand shoulder of the southbound 405, going through Venice Boulevard and continuing here southbound 405 at 60 miles an hour right now, which is still very fast for that right-hand shoulder when the rest of traffic is going about 20. Continuing southbound 405, going through Venice now. Southbound 405 through Venice into that number 4 lane. Let's see what happens as it looks like we might take that off ramp. Nope, he's just using that gore point there to try to get around some traffic through Venice now southbound 405. Just cutting off those cars on that on-ramp there. Still hiding on that right-hand shoulder. That seems to be the only place. Up to CHP reporting 100 miles an hour on the ground. This vehicle going here in that right shoulder. And those ground units are going to back out once again, it sounds like, and they're going to follow this pursuit from the air. This is still an active pursuit by the California Highway Patrol, but those ground units aren't able to get to it right now. So we're gonna follow it from the air. They're saying that's the CHP. This is going through Culver City now, southbound 405. And going through Braddock, southbound 5 through Braddock. So southbound 405 through Braddock. Coming up on the Marina Freeway, the 90, and we'll see what he does here. There's not very many options when it comes to the 90. It doesn't go very far, but it might be an escape off the 405 as traffic has picked up, and all he's been able to really commit to is that right shoulder. Still going about 70 miles an hour in that right-hand shoulder. Now southbound 405 through Culver Boulevard, still going down that right-hand shoulder at 65 miles an hour. We'll see, and it looks like we might be getting off. We are getting off. Let me get the cross here, just a second. Down Jefferson here, we'll have to see what. And we're going to re-enter the freeway at Jefferson, southbound 405. Still, looks like there's a unit that the suspect is going to pass here as it gets back on the southbound 405. You saw that unit on the right shoulder. Another unit right there. They are ready to get involved in this pursuit if it is so chosen by the supervisors of the California Highway Patrol. If you're just joining us on KTLA.com or on our social media, Facebook Live or elsewhere, this is Colton Von Pertz with pilot David Viskovich up in Sky 5 this evening following this pursuit of a reckless DUI suspect here in this Ford hatchback that we see here. This has went into pursuit and then back into following multiple times as we passed through different parts of Los Angeles, starting up in the West Valley area of Los Angeles with the California Highway Patrol up there. Each department of the LAPD and CHP that this has went through have obtained it, turned it into a pursuit, followed the vehicle, and then the driver began driving extremely recklessly, wrong side of the road, really high rate of speeds, going down medians and center dividers and right shoulders, and the police departments have said that's way too dangerous, it's not worth it, we don't want to put anyone else at risk, and have backed out of the pursuit and went back into following modes and canceled those pursuits. So we're just following this vehicle southbound 405 going through Slauson now here, Slauson and Sepulveda here on the southbound 405. Him just, this driver, the suspect, just hugging that that right-hand lane. We'll have to see if he gets off here. If he gets off here, coming up on La Tierra now, this does get into the LAX airspace. We're going to have to get a little farther away, but we're going to follow it the best we can. as we go through LAX. He's getting off on La Tierra. It looks like, nope, it was just using that off-ramp to get around some vehicles back into that number 5 lane and going southbound still. Double in there so you can see the car a little closer, but we are still continuing southbound 405 back up to 65 miles an hour, just normal freeway speeds, but with the traffic that's actually a little fast for this time of day. And forgive this camera move. It's going to get a little darker for a second, but still trying to keep with that vehicle as it goes southbound 405. This gray Ford Fiesta wanted for DUI and reckless driving from the California Highway Patrol and LAPD. An interesting thing about this pursuit is both LAPD and the California Highway Patrol know who this suspect is and know where they come from. So they're trying to contact that suspect, get them to pull over, but he hasn't done so at this point. He is going back towards the area that his car is registered to, though, so we'll have to see if that turns into anything like him pulling over and bailing out of the vehicle. But we're just going to follow this southbound 405 in Inglewood now, going through, let's see here. When we're this far away, my maps get a little out of whack, but we're going to just follow the vehicle here southbound 405 as we go through the Los Angeles International Airspace. Still jumping between lanes from that one lane all the way over to the HOV carpool lane. This vehicle going at roughly 95 miles an hour here southbound 405, coming up on the 105. We'll have to see what happens there in that carpool lane there. You can see this gray Ford Fiesta. Pilot David Viskovich getting us up and over that LAX airspace back down into some normal airspace. We're a little lower, a little closer to that vehicle. That southbound 405 right there goes right through the approach end of LAX where all those big jets with all those passengers are landing. So we have to avoid that as those jets have to land at certain times to get those passengers where they need to go. So we don't want to get in their way and put any danger to anyone or slow anyone down. So they send us a different route. But you can see this Ford Fiesta here, gray in color, that's wanted for reckless DUI at this point, southbound 405, through the 105 here, southbound 405. And this would be the Inglewood area if you're following on a map. As you can see, no CHP in sight. All we have is air units overhead as well as us media right now. They are still calling this pursuit out to the supervisors and units on the ground to let them know what's going on. I lost zoom control. Hey Matt, I'm having a camera issue. I'm gonna have to try to sort this out. Hey, can we come to a hover at some point and we'll catch back up to it? Okay, I'm trying to sort that out. Uh, okay, Craig, I'm trying to find it. Uh-huh. Oh, okay. Oh, 160 left. Thanks, Craig. My map's not working. I see the air unit now. I see the air unit. I just don't see him yet. Okay, maps aren't ready until we move. They just got recalibrated too. I'll keep you posted. Roger, 1 minute. Roger. Ten seconds. Wrong way. That's right. We are down here in Redondo Beach area. California Highway Patrol in pursuit of this Ford Fiesta here that you see. It was going a wrong way on Hawthorne Boulevard. You can see it stopping now. And that's what we've been seeing throughout this pursuit is as the police and law enforcement get involved, the driver begins to drive more reckless, and then as they pull back away, he does slow down and drive a little bit more with traffic, however, still reckless. This started up off of Winnetka and the 101 when California Highway Patrol attempted to pull over this driver for reckless driving. That the driver did run, and however they did have the plate, but the driver began to drive on the wrong side of the road like we saw just a few minutes ago, so they stopped the pursuit. LAPD later picked it up, got on the freeway, driving recklessly on the freeway, cutting through all lanes of traffic, and it continued southbound 405 from there down here through LAX, and now in the Redondo Beach area, actually Torrance area now, here as we go under the 405 freeway there. You can see we are on 173rd Street here, coming up through under the 405. No units behind it, but we do have an air unit overhead. We saw this vehicle getting up over 100 miles an hour as it was on the freeway, in the 80 mile an hour range on some of the side streets earlier as it cut in the center dividers of some of the roads. But this driver has been just driving extremely recklessly. LAPD added in there that they believed that he was under the influence in terms of how he was driving. But the California Highway Patrol is following this vehicle from the air. Now 173rd and Eastwood here in the Torrance area. Actually, he's on Prairie here in the Torrance area. That's exactly right. They were able to run that plate, and from what I understand, listening to the different agencies over this pursuit, they have an idea of who that suspect is, and they have been trying to attempt him via phone to try to get him to pull over, explain the situation. At one point, there was a confusion. Maybe he thought that he was being followed by a fake police officer, which was not the case. But they have been going in and out of that pursuit mode as the suspect was driving recklessly, and they don't want to endanger anyone else. So when it got too dangerous, they said, whoa, 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 we noticed that when we got involved and we saw those lights and sirens behind the vehicle, he started driving worse and more dangerously. We don't want to put the public, that driver of the suspect vehicle, or those officers in any more danger than is needed. If he's going to be driving at a more normal pace, a little less recklessly, without the police right behind him, we can just follow him from the air and see what happens from there. Hopefully he does pull over. I'm going to throw up Skyview 5 here, so you can just see a little bit more of what I'm seeing from up here. 173rd place near Eastwood is where he's at. There is a California Highway Patrol unit standing just a little far back in that fast lane of the road here, waiting to see where this vehicle goes. That suspect vehicle giving himself a lot of room. You can see there between him and that vehicle in front, just in case he wants to dip out to one of the sides, go a different direction. If he doesn't want to turn, he can do a U-turn or something like that. But the thing about this is none of the civilian vehicles in the area know what's going on, and that can be dangerous too, especially with a reckless driver. If he jumps through intersections on a red light, there's no warning for those civilians. But right now it looks like he's just following traffic wrong side of the road there here as we go southbound on Prairie, turning eastbound on Artesia, and it looks like we're going to be getting back on the 405 freeway southbound from Artesia here in the Torrance area. You can see he's going about 40 miles an hour here on that on-ramp. We had that California Highway Patrol unit behind him. We'll see if he gets back involved. I apologize, I didn't throw that map up for you, but now you can see it there. We are southbound 405 from Artesia, going about 65 miles an hour now. Driving is a little less reckless, except for that stint on the opposite side of the road there. But right now, just going with that flow of the traffic, about 70 miles an hour, which is great for this time of the day on 405, due to most of the people staying home. But it is still a concern, as this driver, before we went on air, was going up and down the right-hand shoulders all the way back over to the center divider as it made its way southbound from the San Fernando Valley all the way down through LAX into Torrance. He was going on that 405 using all lanes. He even clipped a BMW SUV as he tried to make one of those erratic turns to jump through lanes. We're not sure of the condition of that car or the occupants of that vehicle, but that's what these situations turn into, is these drivers that are just trying to get home from a long day of work are now confronted by this car going at times over 100 miles an hour right now, hitting 81 miles an hour here on the southbound 405. and they don't know what to do. That's not what they're expecting, and they might try to get out of the way or slam on the brakes, but that might cause more problems for them. But when I saw that accident earlier, it was just a clip, so hopefully it wasn't that bad, but the California Highway Patrol is still following this here southbound 405. As we go through the Torrance area, through all the refineries and stuff. As I pull out to a little wider shot, let's see if there's any units behind. It doesn't look like it. It looks like all we have overhead still is that CHP air unit calling this out to the ground units, so that they are aware and they can get involved if they deem it safe. But at this point, it seems like it's kind of hopping back in and out of pursuit to following, just depending on the demeanor of this suspect. And at the end of the day, the police, the law enforcement, their main goal is keeping people safe. And if their involvement is going to make it worse, and they can follow it from the air, that is what they're going to do. I'm going to hop off real quick and adjust my radio so I can hear this a little better. I'm going to send it back down to you, Mike and Chair. I'm back. That's right. Micah, that's right. We are 110 southbound going towards San Pedro through Torrance Boulevard just a few moments ago. Now in that number 3 lane, going about 85 miles an hour, which is quite quick on the freeway, as you guys know. But as we go back to that information that the Highway Patrol and LAPD were able to pull earlier, it did place this vehicle as residing down here in the San Pedro area. So maybe this driver is heading towards home. We don't know for sure, but that is a possibility as since this pursuit has pretty much started, it's attempted to make its way south for the majority of it. But you can see this vehicle now in the 90s, 96 miles an hour just a moment ago here southbound 405. And CHP is still not behind the vehicle, only following from the air. Light traffic for a majority of this freeway as we continue south into the harbor area, but they are following from the air, and they are letting those units know on the ground into that number 4 lane, still at 90 miles an hour or so. As we go southbound 405 through West, my apologies. Share, we are southbound 110 still through the Pacific Coast Highway off-ramp as we get down into the harbor area. LAPD now beginning to talk about this a little more as we're running out of freeway, so the CHP is going to be a little bit out of their area. But we are up to 95 miles an hour, still southbound in that number 2 lane here on the 110 freeway. We are south of Anaheim Boulevard now. Here on that 110 freeway. This reckless driver from earlier, for the most part, has calmed down. We see every few seconds he'll hop between lanes or do something like that where he just tries to go around a car. And that's great, but at the high rates of speeds that he's been going, just one wrong move and he can outdrive his talent and put that car into a situation that might cause it to go out of control or hit another vehicle, and that is not safe for himself or the public. So we don't want to see these speeds even on a more clear, empty freeway like this. Southbound coming up on Gaffey now here on the 110 freeway, and the 110 does end down here as we get into the San Pedro area, so we'll have to see what he does as we continue south here. But we are just going by the harbor now. You can see very light traffic here, sitting in that number 2 lane, and just listening to the traffic from the law enforcement on the ground. They are aware of where this suspect lives, or at least where this vehicle resides, and they are attempting to see if that might be the direction that he is going. But we are still going southbound now through the off-ramp for the bridge down here, and there you go through this interchange here. And this is where the freeway ends. So we'll see what happens as we get down here, as we hit more of the off-freeway traffic, those stoplights and things like that. We saw him running lights earlier. We saw him going wrong side of the road, which this time of day, people trying to get home, that is extremely dangerous. Southbound Gaffey now from the 110 freeway, or eastbound Gaffey. And we'll have to see what he does here as he continues through the San Pedro area of Los Angeles. No units behind him, just an air unit overhead, wanted for reckless driving and possible DUI on that CHP. We tried to pull him over like we talked about. LAPD got involved, back over to CHP. And it's been in and out of ground units behind it. He's stopped multiple times. We saw that video earlier of him clipping a vehicle on the 405 as he attempted to jump through lanes to avoid traffic. And it looks like we are again sitting at a turn pocket here, sitting far back. That's a tactic he's been using throughout the day. It gives him that ability to change his mind if he wants to turn back into traffic, if he wants to do a U-turn, something like that. He has plenty of space, and so we'll have to see what they do here. The good thing about a vehicle of this size is if the ground units do get involved and they do get a moment, it is small enough for a pit maneuver because of its size. The SUVs and the units that both the LAPD and the CHP have, it would be a possible pro to attempt that sort of of TACTA to end this. Now, just listening right now on the radio, we haven't been able to get it confirmed, but they are learning by talking to people knowing this person or the suspect in the vehicle that he has been known to have a weapon. So that's going to bring in a whole nother level of safety measures that the ground units are going to have to abide by to protect themselves and the public if this does end. So we were just talking about pit maneuvers. Sometimes when there's weapons involved, that's out of the question, because you would hate to have this vehicle get disabled and then the suspect come out shooting if it's like facing the patrol vehicles. So we did that U-turn here on Gaffey. And we're going to have to see what he does here. He has the ability to get on the 110, and it looks like that's what we're doing, back on the 110 northbound from Gaffey, and just going with the speed of traffic here again. So this is what we've been seeing all day. It's just erratic movements, doing different directions, just attempting to evade the police. But the thing about this is our departments down here, they have those air units, and when they have these suspects in sight, they don't let that go away. There's always an air unit overhead if they are in pursuit. Once one arrives, pretty much they often never step away, and they always have an eye on that suspect and always know where they are, so that those ground units can get involved when necessary. But now northbound 110 coming up on the Channel Street exit, going about 90 miles an hour, and now going the opposite way. So we've done pretty much a big circle from earlier. This is where he supposedly resides and comes from. We went all the way from the San Fernando Valley down here and are now making our way back northbound from down here, headed back up the 110, and we'll have to see where it goes from here. But 90 miles an hour or so in that number 1 lane, light traffic as we continue here on the 110 northbound. Roger. Let me pull out and look real quick. I don't hear any on our police scanners here, but as you can see, there's really no one behind them except other traffic that's catching up. But that suspect there still hugging that number 4 lane, going about 80 miles an hour, like you were saying. Odd times right now with these freeways being empty. Any other time of the year, if we didn't have a pandemic or a stay-at-home order, these would be full of commuters trying to get home from their day at work. So the good thing about that is there's no one out here, or at least less people out here, that could get hurt from this driver driving in such an erratic and reckless pace. But we are still continuing northbound. That air unit's overhead, calling it out, going through what's going to be Sepulveda now, northbound on the 110 freeway, 80 miles an hour or so. We're going to try to get to one side or the other, but let's push in and see if we can see anything on the back of this vehicle that is of any interest. I don't see anything there, but like I said, the law enforcement agencies have been able to get that license plate that we can see there and run it and know who this guy is, and are attempting to talk to him or attempting to talk to family, know what's going on in that vehicle. We've heard that the suspect, if it is the suspect that owns the vehicle, inside that vehicle, has been known to carry weapons, and he does live in that San Pedro area, so now we're leaving that area, but all that information is really good for law enforcement as they continue to follow and pursue this vehicle, as it puts everyone in a safer mindset, knowing the situations that can occur. Let's pull out just a little. I saw that vehicle right behind it. It doesn't look like it's an law enforcement vehicle, just another vehicle going at about a similar pace. But coming up on Carson Street now, roughly 80 miles an hour through that light traffic. You can see him just passing in that number 4 lane there. But we'll have to see what happens as we get closer to the 405. We're probably about 3 minutes away from the 405, so about 5 miles or so from the 405 as we go through that Carson off-ramp there. But this vehicle slowing down just a bit as we got on the freeway. Not seeing those units behind it, not seeing them on the side of the road or anything anymore, just beginning to go with the flow of traffic. And we haven't seen this for quite a while. Anytime he's been on the freeway after being followed by a unit, he's been driving extremely erratically, jumping between all the lanes, and it seems like he's pretty much sticking to that 3 and 4 lane right now, kind of going a little faster than traffic, but nothing that would set most officers off. Back into that number 4 lane here in the Carson area, northbound 110 freeway, and we'll have to see what happens as he gets up here closer to the 405 through Del Amo now. He is set up, if he sticks over here in the number 3 and 4 lanes, to go southbound on the 405. And that is, it's not, looking out my window, it's not packed, but there is a higher flow of traffic on the 405 right now than the 110, that's for sure. And so we might see some of that erratic behavior coming again if he feels pressured or worried about the police being involved. But he does have that air unit overhead. I hear him right now giving the updates to the ground units and to those supervisors back at the Communications Division of California Highway Patrol, who are making decisions on what to do next with this pursuit. But southbound 405 now, and going towards Long Beach, that's going to be the direction we are going now as we turn that southbound 405. We'll see if he gets off again or something. As like we were saying, the car does register back to San Pedro, so we're not sure where he's going now. We thought for a moment that he was going back home, but it doesn't look like that's the case anymore. Now jumping through lanes on the southbound 405 here through Carson, and we'll have to see what it goes from here. Now up to 85 miles an hour again, so got back on this freeway with more traffic, sped up quite a bit. Coming up on Del Amo on the 405. Del Amo kind of goes through the 110 and the 405 into that carpool lane now, just speeding off with no units behind, but we do have an air unit above, and this suspect is not going to get away from that air unit by any means, whether he's in the car or on the ground. Those air units are trained to keep an eye on that suspect and not let him go. But we're jumping through that carpool and that number 1 lane, getting out of the way of the traffic. And that's some of the erratic behavior that those CHP units earlier might have noticed, and that might have been the reason they attempted that original traffic stop. But those CHP units saw him going wrong way on a side street and said, no way, that's too dangerous, we don't want to put anyone at risk. If we step away, this might get a little slower and a little more safer, and we can pick him up later. We have an air unit over it, and that's pretty much been the mentality of this whole pursuit of we'll get involved when we deem it safe, but if the suspect gets erratic or starts doing things that are dangerous, we're going to step back and let that air unit do its job, because it's not worth it to us to put anyone else in danger. Coming up on Wilmington now, southbound 405, going about 95 miles an hour or so around this bend here. There is some heavy traffic around the corner as I look out my window, so we'll have to see what the suspect decides to do here. He's jumping all the way over into that number 4 lane, coming up on Wilmington, going over the LA River there. But we're exiting Wilmington now here from the southbound 405 here in Carson, and we'll have to see what he does as we get off this off-ramp. And we're in that right-hand turn pocket. He is being patient. He's not going to try to jump around that vehicle, it looks like, which is good, especially with that oncoming traffic coming from under that overpass. They might not see him with the concrete and stuff that usually holds up those overpasses, and the large trucks that are coming down into the harbor for all that shipping. This can be extremely dangerous. But now we are going to go southbound Wilmington from the 405, jumping over into that left-hand turn pocket. We'll have to see what he does there. And this is the theme we've been seeing, is hopping on and off the freeway. I was trying to see if probably units are following him or what's going on there. Giving himself options to get out of whatever situation he is. When we first came on air with this, as you guys recall, this had stopped in a parking lot. He had been off the freeway in the Redondo Beach area, and he had stopped in a parking lot, and then the CHP arrived, and he said, nope, I'm not ready to give up, and put it in reverse, pulled out of that parking spot, and the pursuit went on. But now we are westbound 223rd Street here in Carson from Wilmington, up to 50 miles an hour, passing that big rig there. Very dangerous on these side streets to be going that speed, especially with slower traffic. No one's expecting for cars going that speed. Wow, just going around that vehicle on the right shoulder there through the intersection there, and we are still continuing westbound on 223rd from Lou Crane, coming up on Edgar Street. Up to 80 miles an hour. Wow, on a surface street here. These speeds aren't new for this pursuit, but typically those speeds were happening on the freeway system. But we are going westbound now through Bonita, and we're going back towards. He is, and that's where it becomes dangerous. That's 100% right. We are at 223rd Street, westbound through Figueroa now, coming up on another stoplight here. He is stopping for this light, which is great because we saw that cross traffic there, but going in the upwards of 70 miles an hour plus down these surface streets is extremely dangerous, as we were just saying. But westbound, we are coming back up on the 110 freeway, so we've kind of done a big circle, northbound 110 up to the 405, getting off on Wilmington, back down here to 123rd, almost at the freeway once again. I'm not sure if he has an on-ramp here. Let's pull out a little wider and take a look. It doesn't look like it. He does have an on-ramp on the other side of the freeway where he can go southbound. So we'll have to see what he makes this decision to do here. But we are following this gray Ford Fiesta here, wanted for reckless driving on the possibility of DUI, crossing over the 110 freeway from on 223rd Street, coming up on Vermont Avenue now here in the West Carson area. I'm just hearing from my pilot now, we're actually going to have to step away and grab some fuel. We've been on this pursuit so long. So I'm going to send it back down to you guys. We're going to grab some fuel and we'll be back over it as soon as possible. Okay. Thank you, we're grabbing fuel. Heading for fuel. We are going to Long Beach.
Okay. Just a little bit, and I want to see if there's any sign whatsoever of that CHP unit, and I don't see anybody behind them. So right now, they're relying on the helicopter who's tracking this pursuit, or what is now a following. But again, as he continues westbound on 223rd Street, he's eventually going to go under the clouds. So we'll see what happens here.
Right, Dallas Raines has been talking about that marine layer that's pretty unusual for this time of the summer, middle of July. So it's going to be...
he called it June gloom in July, which has been nice for our weather, but it's going to be a problem for law enforcement. If this continues on and he starts to go into that marine layer, it's going to be tough to follow this person and dangerous to follow this person from overhead. And they have to stay away from him because his erratic behavior, look at that, just flying through that intersection. It gets even worse when there's some sort of a black and white behind him. So extremely dangerous. Here he comes up to a four-way stop, and he's going to roll into the walkway, but hasn't gone. So at least he's stopping for traffic. That's a good sign. But extremely dangerous. If you're just joining us right now, we've seen some erratic behavior that is very high speed, going into oncoming traffic, running red lights, coming to near collisions, and even having a collision to some degree on the freeway. So we know anything is possible when it comes to pursuing this person. It's a desperate guy trying to get away. We don't know anything more than the reckless behavior inside the car, if there's anything else attached to why he's wanted. We're trying to get some information there. But nevertheless, it's been very dangerous, Chris.
Copy that. Yep, sounds good. Sorry, David, I'm back with you.
It's okay.
Just talking to my pilot for just a second here. It does appear that possibly LAPD may be getting involved here, although I'm not exactly... Okay, we're in Torrance, but I heard something about LAPD, so it does look like some other jurisdictions may be getting involved here. I do not hear any activity on the part of CHP, who was the one that has been tracking him, although they are still tracking from above, which has just been quite some time since we've seen any ground units pull up behind him. But now that he's on surface streets, we have noticed some, more composed driving. It looks like his blinkers are on for some reason. And making it, look at that, a wild left turn there when he was in the right turn lane, and now heading back in the westbound direction. We'll see if any of these jurisdictions, any of these other agencies, I should say, decide to pick this up, whether Torrance PD or Redondo Beach Police. If he continues westbound, Redondo Beach will take interest as well. But he is coming up on Compton Boulevard, it looks like, He's at Crenshaw, and look, where did he go? Is he right behind that in the gas station? Is he in? Okay, I've lost him for just a second, guys. Bear with me.
Yeah, I don't see him either. And I could start to see some of the marine layer coming in.
Southbound Crenshaw coming towards us. Southbound coming towards us. I don't see. Oh, there he is. No, he's at the intersection. Okay, he's at the red light. He's at the red light at Crenshaw. CHP still monitoring from above. Still no word on whether any of these other neighboring agencies are going to get involved. But it looks like he may be setting up for a left turn in this direction. If you see there, he's right there next to the American flag by the Chevron station, right there in the left turn lane with that taillight blinking. You can clearly still make out that damage on the rear driver's side door. Those windows heavily tinted. And only at one time in this pursuit did I see that window roll down and then go back up. It's been basically up the entire time other than that. And sure enough, making that left-bound turn, southbound now on Crenshaw Boulevard. And away he goes.
Right,
no
so
sign of law enforcement
Was it
still.
hazards?
Yeah, he's got his hazards on.
Oh, it didn't look like the other side was on.
Yep.
Oh,
So not that that's going to add to the safety of this situation.
Okay, this is
Another left-hand turn.
So CHP still triangulating apparently as they try and keep close tabs on him without spooking him, without agitating him. They are going to continue to kind of stay in the area, flood the zone with as many units as they can, and that way they're ready for anything, but they don't want to pull up right behind him and try and light him up again. At least that's their tactic as of now. Give him that space to breathe. Let him burn off as much gas as possible, but look at the driving. It's picked up. The speeds have picked up. With some wild turns, left turns from right turn lanes, a quick turn there onto Sepulveda Boulevard, and there you start to see the beginnings of those clouds that are moving into the area here. So he's now on Sepulveda Boulevard, and CHP trying to get into position to maybe bring this to an end, although from our vantage point, they are not right on him, and that's consistent with what we've been seeing here. They are giving him plenty of room, but they are still nonetheless tracking his each and every turn.
Yeah, and then covering this in this area of town with the marine layer moving in, as well as you're close to flight restrictions, aren't you, when it comes to LAX? So it makes it especially difficult to cover this by air.
Oh, yeah. Well, to that point, David, yeah, I was hoping he was going to make that left turn. If he continues westbound, that will put him in the clouds. We'll go ahead and widen out a little bit so you can kind of get a feel for what we're navigating through ourselves up here. That's the beginning of the marine layer, and as he goes much further west, that'll put him completely underneath the clouds. We're going to try and keep an eye on him for as long as we can. Looks like he might be setting up for another southbound turn, and that'll give us the luxury of keeping a closer eye on him. But no, he's going continuing westbound through that intersection there, and we may lose him in the clouds. The problem is that CHP may also lose him in the clouds, and after all of that, it may be this guy's lucky day, at least until he gets, because I would almost guarantee they will catch up with him at some point in the future, based on what they know about his residence.
Yeah, they're not going to let him go. It's one of those things, they probably have enough information. They probably have a decent idea on who this person is. And since the car is not registered as stolen, perhaps it's even the owner of the car that's in that vehicle. So they probably have a firm idea on who this might be. Did he pull into a driveway or a parking lot?
He pulled into, I think, an alley. He pulled into an alley, and we've lost a visual near an apartment complex, 1 block off of Hawthorne Boulevard. And he might be coming out the other side here. We'll watch along with you. Perhaps we might see him come out on the left side of the screen. He was in the vicinity of that black office building, and there he is. And boy, look at him. He's zipping. He is really picking up some steam southbound on, I believe that's Hawthorne Boulevard. So southbound Hawthorne Boulevard at speeds upwards of 60 to 70 miles per hour, really picking things up out of the blue. I wonder, have to wonder, if he saw a black and white somewhere near that intersection. He is going really, really fast now through these intersections. I can't see if these are greens or reds that he's blowing through, but he is really moving, David.
Yeah, and just to remind our viewers, it's difficult for us to keep up and for them to see because there are flight restrictions and dangerous clouds in the area. So this is the best possible angle for Chris to...
the wrong way.
Cover this. But there he goes. We're trying to keep up with this as much as possible. We know it could be frustrating visually, but this is extremely dangerous right now. If this guy decides to run an intersection, Chris, I mean, this could kill multiple people.
Yeah, that's the problem, because he's not showing any signs of braking. He's not even slowing down as he gets through these intersections. Whether they're green or red doesn't even matter, because he's going so fast. Something has spooked him. Something has alarmed him. It's gotten his attention, and he is pushing the pedal to the metal. He was in oncoming lanes of traffic for one intersection, and you could see him weaving across this 3 lanes here, making a right turn, onto 244th Street, making a right turn, another right into a residential neighborhood, northbound through this residential neighborhood in the city of Torrance. We have not seen Torrance PD get involved so far this afternoon. CHP, though, still tracking his movements and trying to get into position. But something happened back there a few miles back that really changed the behavior and changed his driving completely. I mean, he just stepped on it as he was speeding down Hawthorne Boulevard and really scaring a lot of people. But fortunately, man, it's almost a miracle that he didn't hurt somebody there. Back in the wrong way. He's doing whatever he can to get around anybody in his way now. For a long time, he was really driving much more carefully, slowing down for intersections, stopping with stop signs, and now he's just blowing through all of them. He just doesn't care anymore. He is whipping through here like a honey badger, and just really no indication of where he wants to take this pursuit, guys.
Well, it looks like he's pulled his way out of the clouds, and so at least it's clearing when it comes to that, at least in this particular area. Where he goes from here, we don't know. He's looped around.
Into another parking lot.
Okay.
Through a gas station. Gosh, it wouldn't be the first time we've seen him fill up. But
oh my gosh.
I mean, not this particular person, but it's been known to happen. We don't know how much gas is left, but he is now in a Sprouts parking lot at Pacific Coast Highway and Vista, Montana, as he makes his way through, weaving through the parking lot, coming back on to PCH, and just doing a random circle there without any clear reason why. This all appears to be very random driving, random turns, and unlike earlier pursuit, we don't see any reason for it. We don't see law enforcement in the picture trying to pull him over. He still has his blinkers on, his hazard lights are on, and now slowing down again. But man, there were some heart-stopping moments there as he was speeding down Hawthorne Boulevard, driving so fast and so dangerously. A much different scene now as he slows down on PCH, going northbound on PCH, heading back towards that cloud layer. And as far as we could tell from up here, I just don't see any sign of either Torrance PD or the CHP. They're monitoring from above, but we're looking for those ground units because if he continues westbound towards Redondo Beach, they might lose him. It's a very real possibility. If he continues to meander towards the west here, he may lose law enforcement. It's a very real possibility.
I think there he goes. Yep, he just crossed that street. He crossed that red light. Hey, Chris, I have a stupid question for you, but does law enforcement have to abide by the same rules that you have to abide by when it comes to LAX traffic?
Well, it's less about the rules and more about the safety based on the weather in this particular situation.
Okay.
Because, I mean, there's some negotiating that goes on once we get really close to LAX. But in a situation like this, it's just a matter of how safely they can fly over him. Now, keep in mind, as we cover these pursuits, we travel at a much higher altitude than the law enforcement helicopters, in this case, the California Highway Patrol. They will typically follow above at 500 feet, but this cloud layer is so low that to go any lower than that would really be a little bit too dangerous, and so they have to make some very careful decisions based on their own safety minimums and their weather restrictions. So it does look like we're going to lose him in the clouds here as he heads in towards the Rancho Palos Verdes area. It's going to be a combination of likely Redondo Beach PD that would take this over if he continues in that direction. But at this point, I have lost sight of him, and like I said, it's a very real possibility that today may be his lucky day.
Yeah, look at that marine layer. When you pull out that like that and give that perspective, I mean, it does appear that we have lost him for a little while. It doesn't mean we've lost him forever, Chris, because sometimes you'll hear that they have spotted him, he's continuing to move, and then they re-engage. That's still a possibility, but as of right now, he is in that spot where it's difficult for anybody to continue to follow him. He may have gotten away.
And I can confirm now that law enforcement has also lost a visual, just like us.
Okay.
So he is now under the clouds, no sign of law enforcement on the ground. But I'll tell you one thing, we know that there's a lot of patrol cars out there. If he continues the driving that we saw, it would not be out of the question for them to pick it up once again. It might be another agency, but it just wouldn't be out of the question considering how dangerously he was driving and the danger that he poses to everybody else on the road, especially down here in the South Bay where the speed limits are not that high.
Yeah, extremely dangerous driver there. Chris, we're going to let you go for a little while. It's 6:45 right now. We're going to start KDOC TV at 7 o'clock, Eyewitness News. If this